As promised, here we go. I'm going to start my watch through of just Star Trek Discovery with the new eyes that I found at the end of season 4. So during season 4, I found myself looking at it, everything, and finally I had an aha moment. And in that aha moment, I realized Star Trek Discovery is its own thing, but I've always been approaching it as classic Star Trek. So here's how we start the brand new rewatch, and it all begins right now. What's up, my know-it-alls? Welcome to the very first episode. It's Star Trek Discovery, Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2, because that's just the way the series premiered, which was, at the time, you could watch the first episode for free, and then with CBS All Access, which later on became Paramount Plus, you were able to watch the second episode. So that means it was a 2-episode premiere, so I'm doing that, which is, the 2 episodes are The Vulcan Hello and Battle of the Binary Stars. So both these episodes come together and they form the beginning. Now, when I first watched the show, I thought to myself, this show's a mess. I don't know who anybody is and this and that. I don't understand why we focused on her and why aren't we focused on the captain, who, by the way, was played by the inimitable Michelle Yeoh, who comes in as Captain Philippe Georgiou of the USS Shenzhou. But now, watching it with my new eyes, I enjoyed this show. It was amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still things and there are still some issues, and we'll talk about all those things. But for me, for the most part, the first thing I was able to get into my head was, this is not Star Trek the way I've always known it, and that's okay. This was a new thing. We hadn't seen Star Trek for years. So my normal default Star Trek brain is, oh, we're going to be introduced to a cast and there's a crew and everything else, and blah, blah, blah. And while there are those elements aren't the focus. Literally, there is no Captain Kirk. There is no Mr. Spock. What there is not Captain. I gotta get used to that. What there is a Commander Burnham, and the reason why we dive deep into her background is because, remember, Star Trek Discovery is the story of Michael Burnham. Period. And everyone's like, oh, she's this, she's that, she's the other. It's her story. She better be the star of the show. Okay. With that said, the episode begins with us getting a really interesting view of Klingons. Now, this is the first of many, what I would say, shortcomings in the beginning, in the very rocky start of this. Why? Because in classic Trek, Klingons, it was a matter of costuming and makeup, and Klingons are basically just white actors in blackface. Then, later on, during the motion picture eras, when we first saw Klingons again, and I believe it was, I want to say it was either Star Trek 2 or Star Trek 3. I'm pretty sure it was Star Trek 3. Maybe 2, anyway, whatever. But you saw the Klingon. No, actually, you saw it in the motion picture. That's right. Ridges on their foreheads. And then went into Next Generation and whatnot. So this was a radical departure for Klingons, and it shocked me. I still have issues with it. I think the Klingon they're speaking is amazing. I think the attention to detail in what they're vocalizing and what they're saying, certain words. I'm long since out of practice. I used to actually be quite fluent in conversational Klingon. Those of you who have the Klingon dictionary, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, I geek out like that. I'm old school geek like that. So I loved a lot of what they were doing. I didn't like the fact that there weren't many ships. I didn't like the ship designs. And I thought to myself, they didn't really have any of the I would have liked to have seen a lot of the attention paid in the beginning that later on you pay in Strange New Worlds. So, but again, taking this as its own thing. So the Klingon ships don't seem to have any inspiration from Klingon ships we know. Even if it's just a redesign or reinvention of that same look, the Enterprise looks like the Enterprise. Ships of the line look like ships of the line. You get the sense the Federation ships are the Federation ships, and I feel like that was a slight departure that they did, regardless. The other character we're introduced to is Saru. It's a very different Saru than we come to see later on in later seasons, and that just speaks to the evolution of that character. Of course, Doug Jones, chef's kiss, the guy's brilliant, and he does such a wonderful job articulating, and in the beginning you could see there was this someone had the vision to try and make the early Burnham and Saru-ness back and forth to have a very Spock and McCoy feel. And I was okay with it, and I get it. To me, that's all part of the DNA of Star Trek, and I love seeing that, because at the end of the day, remember, Star Trek is about diversity of ideas, not just diversity of people and aliens and whatever else, but diversity of ideas. It's the idea that while we're talking through this, there are no dumb ideas, there are no stupid concepts, because we're facing the unknown. We're facing what no person has ever experienced before. We're going boldly, so to speak. So, I like the fact that Burnham and Saru clearly from the beginning had a dynamic. And that dynamic definitely bleeds over and evolves. And I like the fact we can actually kind of follow that blueprint of that particular evolution. The other thing is, you get to see Burnham's backstory. And in that backstory, we meet Sarek. It's different Sarek than we're used to, but at the same time, I see peppered in the characteristics of Sarek we know, and you get to understand, they're making it clear there will be a path to eventually who these characters will be. It's the same blueprint that later on they extend to Strange New Worlds, in that we're seeing these characters before we ever knew them. As a result, they evolve. They come from somewhere. When they arrive at this beacon, it's clearly cloaked in some way, shape, or form, but not very well because of the radiation. So Burnham is tasked with having, actually the captain wants to be the one to do it, but Burnham takes it on herself, and she goes manually in a suit, in a little EV suit. By the way, the EV suit looks like a more evolved version of things we've seen later. That's okay. Remember, Star Trek Discovery it's a reboot of the universe through the font and the progressive filmmaking of today. It isn't the multi-camera dramedy or drama setup that we had with TOS or Next Generation. It's its own thing. As a result, they've evolved a lot of the things. Now, I did have an issue later on with, they have hologram technology later on, which becomes a thing. But anyway, we'll get into that. Burnham heads to this thing. She finds out it's a beacon. And based on, she's not sure really what it was. She describes it the best she can.
It's difficult to tell if it was constructed or carved. The only word to effectively describe it is, wow.
And then she encounters her very first Klingon. He's a guy in a suit. Later on, you find out he's called the Torchbearer, and the computer's able to identify some very clear markings on the suit that show it to be of a noble house. One of the various houses. There are 24 houses in the Klingon Empire. And so this guy, his name is Tekuvma. He was the Klingon from the very beginning of the episode. He is leading this charge. And so this is the Torchbearer. Don't know what the Torchbearer means. Don't know what this beacon is for. I kind of see it as the equivalent of the sort of the fires of Gondor, or the fires of the Rohan, so to speak, in Lord of the Rings.
The beacons are lit! Gun knuckles for aid! And Rohan will answer.
Where this beacon, when lit, is supposed to call forth the houses of Kalis, of Kronos, in order to have them come together and unify the Klingon Empire once more. As soon as the guy shows up, Burnham, she has to defend herself. He doesn't want to hear anything about it, and so she ends up using her rockets to try to hit him, and she accidentally kills him with his own bat'leth. Or his own weapon. I don't know whether it's a mechlith, bat'leth, whatever. Actually, no, mechlith would be smaller. Whatever. So in killing him, she has inadvertently set off a series of events. Why? The other Klingons are here. They're just cloaked, and I can't figure out yet if they're trying to say that cloaking, this guy is the one who invented cloaking technology, or if he's the one who negotiated for it, or whatever. But at the end of the day, he has cloaking technology. Tekuvma. With all this happening, they managed to get Burnham back. She's real close to this particular star thing that's causing radiation to happen, which is going to unravel her DNA. They use the phrase unravel it like noodles, whatever. And so ultimately they go and they get her, they manage to transport her back. She wakes up 3 hours later and she's being rejuvenated, and she realizes she has to tell them information that's important, that this is Klingons. So that's what she does. Meanwhile, as soon as she's telling them this, the Klingon ship shows up. We jump, and this is where the hologram technology comes in. This is another thing that caused fans of the old series and stuff to freak out. I'm more forgiving of things like this because I feel like you have to progress past full color pajamas. You get to Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is a wonderful evolution of the look that eventually becomes TOS, if you will. So the fact that we have to evolve technology, we have to make things at least fit within a context. I don't know that everything has to be quote unquote canonical, as in like, because how do you explain 1960s technology versus, modernized it's just, it's storytelling, styling and whatnot. So I'm able to roll with it. I hope you can too. Because again, the show has a lot of valuable things, especially now that I'm seeing it through the eyes of, this is Burnham's story, period. You do see some other characters. Detmer is the only other one who's on the bridge that I recognize. So you have Detmer, you have Saru, and then of course Georgiou. As we move into the story, there's a moment where the Admiral she's saying this is dangerous, we have to figure out, we have to blah, blah, blah. The Admiral is telling her, you're not going to do anything. I don't want anybody to touch anything. I don't want anybody to move anything. We are on our way.
The Europa and all fleet vessels within range will be at your coordinates in 2 hours. Hold your position. Do nothing, absent provocation. Understood?
Understood, Admiral.
While this happens, Burnham decides to call Sarek. She calls him, she asks him, she's like, you guys faced the Klingons. How did you face them? And he says, are you going to use this information? I don't know how you're going to use it. Don't get yourself in trouble. Of course, she gets herself in trouble. The Vulcans, when they first encountered the Klingons, they were the first ship was destroyed or whatever else. Vulcans learned from their mistakes. From that moment forward, they shot first every single time. Because respect is what bred the possibility of having a conversation. And if there's Klingons are a different culture. You cannot just walk in and say, we come in peace, which literally is a phrase that Tekuvma is weaponizing against the Federation to get the Klingon houses together. So you can't come at them that way. You have to come at them with force, come at them with a fist. Only then will they listen to peace. Sound familiar? That's immediately what Burnham tells them they have to do. Georgiou's not about it. And ultimately, Burnham makes them, this hurt me to my core. Burnham decides she's going to mutiny. And she Vulcan nerve pinches the captain. This caused fans got upset by this also. Because one of the things that Leonard Nimoy had talked about was how the invention of the nerve pinch came to be. It's supposed to be, what about Vulcans can channel an energy? So everyone's like, well, how can she channel an energy? You learn later on from Data in The Next Generation that it's more a matter of a nerve cluster and how much pressure is applied. And that's what you learn. You learn very quickly. The point of a Vulcan nerve pinch is to generate enough pain so fast that it causes your nervous system to shut down briefly. It's essentially your pain tolerance threshold. You reach that plateau, that's when people pass out, okay? That's how the nerve pinch works. It has nothing to do with energy, though that's what Leonard Nimoy said out of context. In the universal context, we know for a fact Data's not channeling any energy out of his hands when he does it in The Next Generation. Moving on. So she tries to do the very thing that she was going to do. Georgiou comes up on the ship, comes out just in time before they can fire on the Klingons.
Belay that order.
Captain, please. I'm trying to save you.
Stand down.
Ultimately, more Klingon ships show up. Tekuvma weaponizes them against the Federation. The Federation ships show up. And then we get into the next episode. We roll right in. The next episode, very much the battle of the binary stars. It is an amazing fight. All the Federation ships are smaller by like orders of magnitude than the Klingon ships. But the Klingon ships are sitting there still. One of them leaves, leaving the others who want to listen to Tekuvma, and they all follow Tekuvma. And ultimately, there's it goes badly. The Admiral shows up. Tekuvma's like, yeah, we'll listen. Okay. And then he rams the Federation ship. He rams the Europa with the friggin' Klingon ship and just literally slices through it. They cause a warp core breach and explode they self-destruct in order to try to stop the Klingons. And they stop this one ship. Michael makes it out where she says she's in the brig, but the brig is damaged. She manages to convince the computer that ethical protocols require it to help her get out. Early Burnham was very Vulcan informed. Because remember, she'd been raised by Vulcans from a young child. As a result, what else would she have but Vulcanish affectations? Those later on obviously mellow out as things move forward in the time stream, whatever. When she goes to the bridge, she hears that they're trying their best to come up with a solution. Burnham decides we need to go get him. We need to get him, not to kill him. If you kill him, you make him a martyr. So what you have to do is you actually have to find a way to capture him and make him a symbol of defeat. That's the rationale. So Georgiou and Burnham go over. They face off against the albino Klingon, who will become important later, and with what's his name, Tekuvma. And as this whole situation progresses, Tekuvma manages to get the upper hand, and he kills Georgiou. Without thinking, Burnham has her phaser on stun. She flips it to red, which makes it sets to kill, and she shoots him in the back of the neck. And his armor absorbs some of it, but at the end of the day, she manages to mortally wound him. Before she can get to Georgiou's body, Saru teleports her, or transports her out.
Burnham, if she's deceased and you're in danger, I have no choice.
And she's heartbroken. The Klingons, she manages to cause the thing she wanted to avoid. At every stage, Burnham is making everything worse. This to me is the height of, this is a hero's journey that's beginning, and it's beginning from the lowest possible point. Finally, the episode ends with Burnham facing a court-martial. She has to say some final words. Her rank is stripped from her, and she's going to prison for the rest of her life. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing's half the battle, you're halfway being a know-it-all yourself. What's it all index for this episode for me? I tell you what, revisiting these with new, fresh eyes, there was a lot of really good stuff. There was some stuff even I had issues with as a fan, i.e. the Klingons, i.e. some technology things. But those are not insurmountable hurdles, and I'm okay with forgiving them to a point. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this beginning a solid 8.5 out of 10. All right, guys, comment below. Tell me what you thought. Are you excited for this watch through? I know, a rewatch through. I know I am. Again, I'm watching with these new eyes, and I'm enjoying the show in a way that I didn't before. So comment below, let me know your thoughts. Do me a favor, if you really want to keep up with everything, click this playlist right here, subscribe to the channel, but more or less click that playlist. That's going to give you my most recent Star Trek Discovery Season 5 reviews. That's the last episode of the finale of Season 5, and you can always subscribe down there. All right, guys, till next time, never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.